Howdy folks, welcome to FoundFlix and another edition of Ending Explained. This time we'll be continuing our look at the Insidious series, explaining the brand new sequel Insidious the Last Key, which for the first time puts fan favorite character Elise at the forefront of the story. Recently I did a video covering the first 3 Insidious films, so make sure you catch up on that before watching this one to get the full story. The Last Key takes place chronologically right after the events of Chapter 3, with Elise teaming up with her goofball sidekicks Tucker and Specs. But there are also several scenes set in the 1950s with a childhood Elise where we finally learn about her backstory and her first encounters with the spirit world, which also has an impact on her current case. So let's get into The Last Key, explaining the movie's big twist, the ending, and Elise's previously unknown backstory. The movie opens in the 1950s in Five Keys, New Mexico, where we meet Elise's family living in a house adjacent to a prison facility where her father works as the warden. Due to the number of executions performed at the prison, there are numerous spirits that haunt Elise's house. And already this early in her life, Elise can see these spirits and communicate with them. Her mother is supportive of her gifts and believes Elise when she mentions seeing these spirits, but her father is a very different story. And anytime she sees something out of the ordinary, he tries to convince her otherwise by making her face the wall and beating her with a rod. But Elise is unwavering using her gift, hoping to somehow help the spirits that she meets, such as one particular spirit which sounds like the voice of a young girl that guides Elise down into her family's nuclear fallout shelter and to a red door with light pouring from the keyhole, revealing the further lined with prison cells on the other side. The spirit asks Elise to open the door, saying it can bring her more light, and needs her help to open all of the doors. Not knowing any better, Elise opens the door, greeted with only darkness on the other side. Way to go, you opened the door to Deathland! Something definitely got through the open door, as Elise's eyes glaze over white and her mom gets choked to death by a wire. And the spirit she has unwittingly unleashed is the key-fingered, monstrous-looking demon called KeyFace. I mean, he doesn't have keys on his face, but whatever. He mentions wanting to open all of the doors, which is kind of interesting, and we understand a bit more about what those red doors that pop up in the movies are all about. These doors act as direct gateways between the real world and the spirit world, and it seems that KeyFace is attempting to open the red doors to blend the lines between our two realms. Like the other further spirits we've seen, he's got a specific desire, which is to influence or possess others, and then KeyFace uses them to create more negative energy and violence, which it feeds on. Unfortunately, one of its victims is Elise's father, who after the door is opened by Elise, takes advantage of his abusive, violent nature, leading to him taking women prisoner in their fallout shelter, eventually murdering them. Of course, little Elise has no idea about any of this, believing her father is simply a giant a-hole. And surprisingly, at one point when older, she actually saw one of her father's victims that had escaped the basement. She at the time believed she was seeing a spirit, which wouldn't be out of the ordinary for her, but the woman was actually alive at the time. She, along with her brother Christian, continued to suffer their father's abuse for years, until at the age of 16, Elise couldn't take it anymore and left her home, and never returned there again. But she is about to be drawn back there by a new case and will have to confront all of her past and along the way learn the truth about her father and also attempt to reconcile with her estranged brother. Elise receives a call from Ted Garza, who has recently moved into her childhood home, and strange supernatural things have started occurring there. So Elise, along with Tucker and Specs, head back to Five Keys to help Ted. But just as her father had been, Ted is also under the influence of KeyFace, who is most likely the one actually luring her there in the first place, since it has unfinished business with her. When they arrive at her home, all of the original furniture and belongings from her past are still there, with Ted saying he bought the house as it was. So it seems that literally no one has lived in the house for the past several decades since Elise's family was there. And that's why all of this is happening now with Ted moving in. KeyFace finally has someone it can use again to do its bidding, and was unable to do this with the house empty. And during an initial investigation, a spirit begins to reach out to Elise, the spirit of the woman she saw as a child at her house, wanting to show her what Garza is hiding. But they haven't quite figured that out yet. The next day, they head into Elise's hometown, where Elise comes across 2 girls that she thinks looks very familiar. It turns out these are her brother's daughters, who then shows up, having not seen his sister in years, but is unwilling to talk to Elise, still upset for abandoning him with their father so many years ago. His daughters Melissa and Imogene stick around to talk to her, and Elise hopes she has found something that will help the situation with her brother, giving them a picture showing she found a long-lost whistle that belonged to Christian as a child, which was given to him by his mom, who told him that whenever he was afraid to blow the whistle and she would be there. Later, Elise returns to the house and the same spirit guides them to a woman Garza has captured in the fallout shelter, revealing to them Garza is clearly not himself, who turns on Elise and the others, locking them in the room. And surprisingly, Specs saves the day, pushing a bookcase onto Garza, crushing his head. In the aftermath, while Elise is being interviewed by the police, Christian and his kids go to the empty house to look for his precious whistle. During the search, Melissa is lured into the basement, having an encounter with KeyFace, who enters one key into her throat, causing her to be unable to scream, and then uses another finger jamming it into her chest, bringing her spiritual body back with him into the further, leaving her physical one comatose, as seen previously with other victims Dalton and Quinn. There's a limited amount of time you can be separated from your physical body, and now Elise will have to enter the further to save Melissa. And her sister Imogene also wants to help stop the spirit, revealing that she too has abilities like Elise, describing her own experiences with astral projection. Well, yeah, that'll probably come in handy. That night, Elise searches the basement of the house, uncovering several suitcases in the walls, each with a skull and personal belongings of different women that had been captured and killed by her father. Upon seeing these, Elise then remembers the woman she had seen as a child and that she was her father's prisoner. And now she finally understands what made her father into the monster that he was, concluding KeyFace had been possessing the men that lived in the house to imprison and kill girls for it. And speak of the devil, as after she searches through about 50 suitcases, KeyFace pops out of one, taking Elise to the further as its prisoner. Well, now what are you gonna do? No one else has the ability thing. Oh, right, the girl we just met 5 minutes ago that also has astral projection abilities. So now it's up to our new girl Imogene to save the day, who is hypnotized by Tucker and Specs and heads into the spirit plane to rescue her aunt and sister. In the further version of the prison, KeyFace presents Elise's father to her, who upon seeing she gets so angry that she brutally beats him with a rod just like he used to. But as Imogene arrives, she sees that the monster is feeding off of the negative energy and stops. KeyFace attacks them, and interestingly, the spirit of Elise's father actually tries to help them out here, fighting back, only to get killed by KeyFace. But what happens to his spirit when it's killed? I guess all we can assume is that he is gone for good. But at least in his final moments, he was free of KeyFace's possession and at least tried to do something right before he died. KeyFace is able to overpower both of them, pulling out his key about to kill Elise. But Imogene happens to find her dad's whistle, tossing it to Elise, who blows on it, summoning the spirit of her mother, who appears and banishes KeyFace to the darkness. As they make their way back through the further, they encounter several red doors, other doorways from this dimension to our own, including one which she opens, revealing Dalton during the first Insidious film when he heard something nearby in the attic. Literally the first encounter he had with the spirit world. And it turns out that it was Elise. As was established in chapter 2, the further doesn't have time as we know it, and it's possible to travel to these different time periods in our world via these various doors. Elise and her nieces wake up in the real world, and her brother is there too. They finally reconnect now that he understands all about his sister's gifts, and that they are indeed true and not make-believe. Back in her house in Los Angeles, Elise has a dream about Dalton, who she saw in the further, and is scared awake when the Red Devil appears in the boy's window. She then gets a call from Lorraine Lambert, who says that Elise helped her son many years ago and needs her help once again, this time with her grandson. And Elise already understands she is needed after her dream about Dalton, telling Lorraine she will be on her way in the morning. This leads us directly into the events of Insidious Chapter 1 and 2, involving the Lambert family, who finds their son as being hunted by the Red Devil, eventually leading to Elise's death at the hands of the Black Bride in Josh's body. Since Elise is heading to the Lamberts the very next day, there is no more unaccounted for time left between movies, and this does bring us full circle back to the beginning of the first film, with the interesting new addition of her having seen Dalton and dreamed of him being haunted before they even met. It's just too bad that this information doesn't help her, not die. But at least we finally know Elise's backstory, giving us a deeper understanding to the character that has become the soul of the Insidious series. And guess what? There is no conclusion to the cliffhanger from part 3, where Elise was visited by the long-haired fiend and Red Devil. Not that I'm really surprised, as at this point they have only actually followed through on the cliffhanger from the first film and none of the others. And perhaps that's why Last Key has no cliffhanger or post-credit scene or anything like that. This is to show us the conclusion of The Last Key brings us to the end point of Elise's journey as seen over the course of the 4 films. But I have a feeling if this one makes enough money, they'll figure out a way to keep the series going. Honestly, I think they need to bring Elise back to life, which could be done with the universe's rules as established, via the red doors seen in the Further. Tucker and Specs could enlist Imogene to transport to the point of time of Elise's murder and prevent it from ever happening. Boom, Elise is alive. I know it's cheesy, but it would work and allow the series to continue forward after Insidious 2. Just bring her back to life already, guys. And if you're wondering about all those deleted scenes in the trailer, the director says all those will be included on the DVD. That'll do it for my ending explain on Insidious the Last Key. Overall, it's a worthy addition to the series, but still doesn't come to the same heights as the original 2 films. What did you guys think of The Last Key? Where do you rank it in the series? And what did you think of KeyFace? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. Thanks for watching FoundFlix. See you next time.